it's actually going to develop more. So, I didn't exactly say that there's going to be a second term, but something like that is on the horizon. And the third, that we in India, we have to find our solutions, and we have to think for ourselves. We have to use our own culture, history, tradition. So, because I'm a political science student, international relations student, I got tired of people telling me that all the great strategic concepts and diplomatic norms are from the Western world. And therefore, this idea of think for yourself, audit, ask yourself what were the good choices and the bad choices we made. And what were the choices we never made? Look at the roads not taken. Could we have done China differently, Pakistan differently, Israel differently, made partition differently? And in thinking for yourself, I used actually the Ramayana epic as a illustrative example, because if you connect it to something which is there in everybody's, all of us know those stories. So if you tell someone an example out of our own culture and history and tradition, they say, oh, okay, I get it. So that is
so
a
why don't you, yeah, so first of all, it would be lovely if you could tell us exactly how you use the epics, for example, to understand contemporary ideas. And secondly, why Ramayana? Because I would have thought if I had to choose one of the epics, I would have gone for the Mahabharata.
I have the Mahabharata in this book. so I tell you really what happened. I was going around. I had different language versions. I think it was, I forget, either the Marathi or the Gujarati book release I'd gone to. And somebody stood up in the audience, like you people, and said, have you ever thought about the Ramayana? Why don't you reflect on that? Does that have lessons? So I took it up as a bit of a challenge, really. I had not myself thought so clearly about it, but the more I got into it, and in fact I discussed it with a mutual friend of ours, Vivek Debroy, what are the lessons? And I give you just 3 examples, okay? Term diplomat. Okay, what comes to your mind? You say diplomat, I don't know, Kissinger, Metternich,
even Krishna.
I would say Hanumanji. Hanumanji, just look at it. He is being sent by Prabhu Sri Ram to a hostile territory. Say, go there, kind of figure out the lay of the land. We don't know anything about this place. We have no idea where Masita is. So it's a kind of an intelligence, understanding, recce, mission, very open-ended. And what does he do? He goes there. He actually is successful in the most difficult part of it, is actually to go and meet her and to keep up her morale. But he is able to actually get into Ravan's court by surrendering himself. He is able to understand the dynamics of the court. He actually is the only person who gets an understanding of Vibhishan. So that when Vibhishan finally defects and they're not sure is he a real defector or not, he's able to say, no, he's a good guy, he's on our side, we can use him. And then he's actually able to set the place on fire. I mean, think of it, a diplomat going to a place and setting the place, not metaphorically, but literally on fire. Now,
have you ever attempted to do that?
Don't tempt me. So the point is, look, that's a great example of a diplomat. Now, I give you a very different example. Prabhu Sri Ram himself. What do you need when you say foreign policy diplomacy? What is it about? It's a common sense thing in a way. How do you maximize your friends? How do you purpose them for a job, a task at hand? How do you manage, because sometimes you have a large group of people, how do you manage all of them, create a coalition? Now, what are we trying to do today as Bharat? We are trying to increase our number of friends. We are trying to get different countries, all of whom may be a little bit, they may not all be on the same page, but we're trying to get them all together and work towards an end. Now, this kind of coalition building is very important. Now, look at, in his case, that the coalition that he assembles to actually go to London. And sometimes, coalition building can be very difficult. He has, to give you one example, he has Angad in his coalition. He's actually killed his father, Wali. And yet he is able to motivate and persuade Angad to be loyal to him, to do his work, to represent him. In fact, Angad also goes to, as a diplomat, to parley with Ram. So, coalition building, Prabhu Sri Ram's sort of skills, you can say. Or, in a way, I would say Raman himself. Today when we look at the world and we assess other countries, Ravan is an example of what I would say strategic complacency. That Brahma has given him a wish that, and he invokes that he cannot be killed by anybody, but is arrogant enough to think that human beings don't matter at all. So he's brought his insurance against every other kind of creature.
Nuclear deterrent.
But with a strategic complacency chink in the armor. And then in a way his quest, the lack of restraint, the fact he antagonized, he's not able, he's carried away, the hubris. So I think each of these characters, when you apply them to the real world, you can see something familiar out there.
So keeping up with the same sort of line of thought.
In the era of cloud computing and microservices, there are some essential tools that the SDEs need to know. Docker and Kubernetes is one of them. Here's why they're used by all major tech companies today. Docker allows you to build your application and ship it in a container with all its dependencies operating systems like Linux or Windows and runtime environments such as Java, .NET or Node. This simplifies the application deployment process, letting you ship the Docker image to a fellow developer or deploy it into any host or cloud platforms. On the other hand, Kubernetes has changed the way you can develop and deploy applications by automating tasks like scaling, load balancing, and self-healing. Want to know more about it? Join the Scalar Masterclass for free.
There's the epics, of course. It's creating unnecessary noise. So keeping up with the kind of sort of theme of that we are going down, we now live according to another sort of great mythology of ancient India, Puranic mythology, which is that of Sagar Manthan. The world we live in is clearly churning in multiple ways. It's throwing up both poison in terms of dangers, and it is throwing up Amrit in terms of opportunities. And we have just had the Honorable Prime Minister visiting the US. He met with Trump, the first major sort of meeting of world leaders. And there is a lot of buzz about this. Can you give us a sense of what came out of it? What do you think? Where do you think all of this is headed?
The Prime Minister was, as all of you know, in the US in Washington on the 12th and 13th of this year. And he was among the earliest world leaders to be invited by President Trump in his second term to meet with him. I've been doing this all my life, so I have some reference points and some experiences as a comparative assessment. And I would say with all objectivity, I thought it went very well, and for a variety of reasons. One, all of us know that, Narendra Modi is a very strong nationalist, and he sort of radiates that. Yeah. Now, Trump is an American nationalist. And I think in many ways, nationalists kind of respect each other. I mean, each one, I mean, they're very clear-eyed. I mean, they are in it for their country. I mean, Trump accepts that Modi is in it for India. Modi accepts that Trump is in it for America. But the task, the purpose of the meeting is to say, okay, how do we find something which works? What is the common ground? What is it we can do together which makes both of us strong? The second I felt was the chemistry was good. Because again, Trump being somewhat unusual, there are a lot of other leaders in the world who, with whom he has not necessarily a positive history. Now, in the case of Modi ji, it's not the case. I mean, he had a great visit. He remembered. I mean, it was a very interesting, you could say, psychological insight. He walked into the Oval Office. He had a table like this, a little bit bigger, and he had a book. It was like a picture book of his first term. Okay. Now, I was later told that after his term finished, he himself selected those pictures.
Okay.
Which was like his
Memory of his.
Memory of his term. The maximum number of pictures were about India.
Is it?
In that. And when our Prime Minister came, he actually leant across, picked up this book, and he said, I want to show you a picture. And it was the two of them in the Motera Stadium in Gujarat, where we did Namaste Trump event. So clearly he had a very good kind of memory and feelings about that earlier term. Now, this meeting, of course, I mean, some of it was about that period, but a lot of it was about, okay, what do we do? How do we go forward? President Trump appears to have a vision of what America's interests are, what he wants from the world, what he wants from the relationship with us. We have the same. I mean, we too have demands of America. We too have opportunities with America. So I think there was a very open discussion about all of this, and I must say it was conducted with a lot of good humor, geniality, cordiality,
which was very visible, by the way.
Yes.
So now, obviously, I don't think people were entirely surprised with how good the vibe was, because there was a history of a good relationship in the past. But there are some things that America is now doing for its own, but has, positive externalities to us. So one of them is all these revelations about USAID. How do you read these revelations that are coming out? And of course, in a sense, President Trump is ripping out a certain ecosystem. It's not just about the USAID. It is almost a global ecosystem that he seems to be ripping out. And what do you think? How does that play to India?
Sanjeev, let me come back to the book, because selling my book is my primary task here. Okay? So this issue, in a way, it's there somewhere in what I have written. There are two different parts, okay? I have spoken about a global, that there is a kind of, how do I call it, a kind of a globalization mafia. There are a bunch of guys in the world who are not elected, who are self-selected, self-appointed, self-networked. They believe that they should decide what are the good, what is good, what is bad, what are norms, what are not, what are rules. And actually, in the last 25, 30 years, I think they've had a huge domination, not just economic domination, but a kind of domination on our thought process.
Yes.
Now, one of the points I've made about, it's a chapter called Reimagining Security. But we think, if I were to ask any of you, okay, what is security? You will say security, it means having the army in the borders. Okay. Security is, you must prevent terrorism. Yes, I agree. security is the police should ensure the cities are safe. Yes, absolutely. But security is also about how your thought processes are influenced, how narratives are set, how facts are presented to you, how your mind is molded without your even knowing it. And a lot of that is done through, through activities of NGOs, of tech, of
Global rankings of all
yes,
kinds.
of rankings. You are made to believe your democracy isn't working. Which is, I mean, it's a very, very dangerous and a very
But
Machiavellian.
now the artificial intelligence is learning on this data, so it actually becomes the default.
So the point, my point is without a specific reference to any organization, I have laid out that that our idea of what is security actually has to expand in a tech world. That so your security can be threatened without your leaving your house, because the thought processes, the influences, the narratives, your morale, your sense of what is right and wrong is all influenced by your phone, what you read every day, the pictures you see. So coming back to your question, look, I think some information has been put out there by the Trump administration people. And obviously that is concerning. It would suggest that there are activities which has a certain objective out here to push a narrative or a viewpoint. I think as a government we are looking into it, because such organizations have an obligation to report. And my sense is, the facts will come out. Now, I read saying, so and so dealt with USAID or so and so. Look, it's not a question of did you deal with USAID or not. USAID was allowed, has been here historically. But USAID was allowed here in good faith to do good faith activities. Now, suggestions are being made out of America that there are activities which are in bad faith. So it surely warrants a look. And if there is something to it, I think the country should know who are the people involved in the bad faith activities.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And with that, let me bring us a little bit closer home, because in the earlier book, the India Way, you specifically talk a lot about the Indian Ocean region, the Indo-Pacific. And this is important because in some ways we have been a landlocked country mentally. And this is tragic because you see, from a geostrategic perspective and even an economic perspective, we are actually an island nation, because we have one friendly nation to our northeast and one friendly nation to our northwest. And even though we do trade with China, we don't trade with the bit that we have a border with. So effectively, for the purpose of any economic activity, we are effectively an island nation, and yet we have this very...
All our exports are primarily seaborne.
Yes,
that's correct.
So how has this change in thinking about the world in a more maritime way begun to influence the wider geostrategic thinking and diplomatic thinking that we have?
I think you have put your finger onto something, because somehow we had slid into a mentality, not just of a land power, but we had actually blocked out the maritime side of our interests. So even if, think back on whatever history we are taught in schools or what we pick up otherwise, most of our history is about North India. Most of it is about the Northwest. I mean, that's almost like that's what it was all about. Now, the reality was that actually Indian seafarers, Indian traders, Indian military expeditions traversed the world. I have lived in Singapore, in China, and in Japan, and I've traveled to almost every country east of us in that region. Now, the biggest Hindu kingdom, probably a Hindu temple probably ever made is in Cambodia. Okay, if you go Angkor Wat, if you go to the middle of Vietnam, there is, I mean, if some of you may be familiar with those Jaishankar Prasad, no relative of mine story about Champa kingdoms. Okay, you can actually see there the archaeological sites of, we are talking maybe 1,300 years ago, 400 years ago. In fact, in China, there are places in China where there are temples, where there are Indians who have left, some kind of commercial imprint. So what was happening was our politics, in a way, was blanking out what was the accurate history of this country. And I'm giving you the Eastern. It will equally apply, let us say, to the Deccan. It would apply to Gujarat. I'm an MP from Gujarat. Okay, so I can tell you, today I was last week in Oman. They had an exhibition called From Mandvi to Muscat, because there were people who had gone. There have been people from Gujarat who have gone as far down as Zanzibar and Madagascar for 1,000 years plus. But we actually somewhere, because for whatever reason this was not important, or this was not relevant for the purposes of whoever were writing our history, we never gave it due weight. But I can tell you, in diplomacy, we had the same problem. Till Modi ji became Prime Minister, we actually didn't have an integrated Indian Ocean strategy. We didn't even have an Indian Ocean department in the Foreign Ministry. We had a separate Sri Lanka, Maldives, we had a separate Mauritius, Africa department. The idea of an integrated sort of maritime vision was something he propounded in March of 2015 as Sagar Outlook. He went to Mauritius. So the way we are looking at it today is very different from the way we used to do before. And it's time we needed that correction.
So in fact, you have dedicated, I think, the first book at least to your father, who many people in the audience may not know was also thinking about these kinds of issues back 30, 40 years ago. And he was very influential at that time as well. Can you give us a sense of what were the issues he was dealing with and how you are dealing with these issues? How are they different? How are they similar? What are the frameworks of thinking?
I would say they were different for this reason. In the last, at that time, there was a concept called Indian Ocean as a zone of peace, which basically was a nice way of saying, look, the rest of the world should stay away and not be too visible in this part of the ocean. But it was a defensive strategy. It was say, don't come near me, I'm uncomfortable. Right now, our capabilities have grown. If something happens in the world, it is actually, people expect today that India would step forward. I mean, just think of the last 10 years. There was a civil war in Yemen. We were the people who, we sent ships and planes to bring people out, not only our people, but foreigners as well. If you look, there was a sort of a cyclone in Mozambique. There was a mudslide in Sri Lanka. There's a water crisis in Maldives. So if you look at the entire Indian Ocean region today, the expectation is right now, the Houthis, for example, are endangering the Red Sea and the Gulf of it. All naval ships are out there. So we have moved from being defensive to being much more proactive. And my analogy for this is what has happened in diplomacy parallels what happened to Indian cricket. But in Indian cricket, you didn't step outside the crease and you were happy if you got a draw. You never looked to win. Today, Indian diplomacy, like Indian cricket, is looking to win.
And this is a good place for me to open it up for Q&A. If yeah, somebody can take a bunch of them then, and then we'll do some from here. So a couple of questions from here and then. Okay, a young lady in that checked suit, if you can hand it over. No, so introduce yourself and a question to your question, yeah? I still can't be heard. Wait. Get her another mic. Or you can, is there a problem? There's not switched on. Can you get another mic down there, please? If you don't have one, you can use mine.
Take mine. Take mine. Yeah, take mine.
If you are running a business where you are the one who's managing operations, sales, marketing, finances, hiring, and everything else, then let me tell you something. You're not really running a business. Your business is making you run because you've set yourself in a trap called the trap of self-employment. Self-employment is a situation where you start a business, you create jobs, you pay salaries to your team members on time, but you end up doing the work that your team is supposed to do. And in such a trap, it's very common for the business owner to not pay himself or herself consistently, because you pay yourself only when there is money left, if there is money left. Now, if as a business owner, you're stuck in this trap and you're serious about breaking through this trap and build a business in a manner where you are not stuck in day-to-day firefighting and you can focus on growth and expansion, then I invite you.
We'll take 3 questions at a time and then you will answer them, yeah?
Good evening, sir. I'm feeling so glad I'm sharing the same room because half Delhi University is waiting outside. Myself, Kavan Kaur from Kamla Nehru College, Delhi University. And sir, my question is, how do you see the issue of violent clashes in Bangladesh after stepping down of PM Sheikh Hasina? And what are the steps government will take for Indians, as we can see Indians are victimized? Thank you, sir.
What are the steps I'm going to take?
I'll take 3 questions.
Yeah, so one more question. Stay down this path and then we'll take it there. So give it to somebody there. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Why don't you speak?
Namaskar. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Namaskar, sir. I'm Komal Charan from the Miranda House College. I'm pursuing political science. Sir, as India ascends the global ladder with the agenda of Viksit Bharat, it is bound to rattle the entrenched powers of the post-1945 order. So, your framing of West's Goldilocks approach towards the Indian porridge, how should India respond to any hostile or adverse reactions from the West? And sir,
That's one question.
And sir, I have just prepared a synopsis paper, a comprehensive synopsis paper of your India Way book, so I would like to present it if possible.
So give it to the gentleman right in front, then you stand up and
Hello, Jaishankar sir. Big thanks, sir. Honored to see you. Sir, when Pakistan killed our 40 Jawans, we do zero trade with Pakistan. But when China killed our 20 Jawans, but still we do 126 billion biggest trade with China. So, sir, and just a small one line, sir. Sir, I'm big fan. Sir, I bring you a small gift for you. So can I give it to you?
I'm sure you can give it to his team that's standing there. Yeah?
Okay, sir.
Okay.
The first question about Bangladesh. Look, we obviously, with all our neighbors, we wish them well. We have a long history with Bangladesh, a very special history with Bangladesh, which goes back to 1971. Now, things happened there last year, all of you are aware of it. I think for us, what is very troubling, there are 2 aspects to it. One, of course, the spate of attacks on the minorities in Bangladesh. I think, obviously, it is something which impacts our thinking, and it is something which we have to speak up about, which we have done. The second is, they have their politics. We can agree, we can disagree. But at the end of the day, we are a neighbor. They have to make up their mind what kind of relationship they want with us. Because if every day somebody in Bangladesh who's in this interim government, which they have made up for themselves, if they stand up and blame India for everything, and some of the things, if you look at the reports, are absolutely ridiculous. You can't, on the one hand, say, oh, I would now like to have good relations with you, but I get up every morning and blame you for everything which goes wrong. So I think it's also a decision that they have to make about what kind of relationship they want. We have sent a very clear signal saying, look, okay, you're a neighbor. We would like things to calm down. We would like the trade, the contacts, and other things. But we would obviously not like to see messaging and signaling which is continuously hostile in a way to India. The question from Miranda House. By the way, my wife went to Miranda House. Does Viksit Bharat rattle people? In a way, I would say, look, our rise does rattle people. I mean, that is why, when we were talking about this ranking, Sanjeev was mentioning the kind of propaganda, I would say, look, people who can barely run their own countries are passing judgment about us. So why do they do that? Don't think this is out of ignorance. It's not like they don't know. They know. They're doing it because it's part of what you say. That there are it's some of it. Yes, today India is a bigger economic player. I think what perhaps in a way rattles them the most is we are expressing opinions of our own. We are in a way truer to our culture and heritage and traditions. We stand our ground. We say, I don't need to, this may be your view or your practice or your thinking. Sorry, that's not mine. My history is different. And by the way, my history is wrong. So I think we use this term called rebalancing. What has happened in the last 70, 80 years is the West totally dominated the global economy as other countries in Asia, Southeast Asia, Korea, China, India came up. There was an economic rebalancing. After some time, the economic rebalancing became a political rebalancing. But today, there is a big battle on for cultural rebalance. What is right, what is wrong, what is correct? Many countries resent this kind of one truth globalization run out of New York, which wants to tell everybody that you have to be some kind of watered down version of New York if you are to be successful. Now, I think that is a big issue today in the world. The third question, Pakistan, China. Look, in a way, the two relations are not comparable. They are in some respects, they're not in some respects. In the case of Pakistan, what happened was, Pakistan never gave us MFN, most favored nation status. So what was actually happening was, we were sending goods to them in a disadvantageous way. They were enjoying the benefits. It was not reciprocal. Now that was not the case with China. The reality where China is concerned is because from the 1960s onwards, there's a very interesting book by Professor Arvind Panagaria is brought out on the Nehru development model. We were not able to industrialize and take advantage of manufacturing opportunities the manner in which China did. China did it two ways. One, through economic industrial policies, but also by reaching accommodations with the West in the 1970s, 80s, 90s onwards. So as a result, today China accounts for 30% plus of global manufacturing. Now, what have we been trying to do? We've been trying to say, make in India, encourage manufacturing. We have actually incentive schemes for manufacturing. We are making it easier to do business. We want manufacturing to grow in this country, because to stand up and say, I will not import from another country will not work unless you have an alternative source, and your best alternative source is yourself. Now, we are today facing the accumulated problems of not taking manufacturing seriously for many, many decades. And I think today the policies are much more Atmanirbhar. The idea is we should produce more in India. And I would say, particularly as we move towards newer technologies, we have today an answer if we can also get our partnerships, international partnerships right.
So I'm going to ask questions on this side now. Right next to you, there's somebody. Give it to him while he. Right, yeah. Just give it. Yeah. And then we take it further back. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I can't believe I'm talking to you. You have been my role model for the past 5 years. I'm shaking. So my question, sir, it has been acknowledged by various stakeholders, including yourself, that the size of our foreign service is problematic. By some sources, our foreign service is smaller than Singapore. What steps can we, as Bharat, take to solve this issue? Thank you.
Yeah. Take it right to the end. Go right to the back. Yeah. Wait. There's a gentleman. There's a lady there in red. Give it to her. Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am. Here. Hold this. Queen size, king size, किसी भी size की बेडशीट हो, हमारे जैसी वैरायटी आपको कहीं नहीं मिलेगी। देखना चाहिए। चलिए आइए हमारी वेबसाइट पे। Nice, now just look at this.
अपने प्रोडक्ट को पूरी दुनिया के सामने ले जाना है, ये सब क्यों? Amazon है ना, जहाँ है करोड़ों कस्टमर्स, इंडिया और 18 ग्लोबल मार्केटप्लेसेस से भी। दिखोगे तो बिकोगे।
Hello, sir. Huge fan. My name is Akshita. I'm a data scientist at BCG, and I wanted to ask what are the agencies or companies we use to secure our data of government agencies or ministries or the armed forces? And if it is not some Indian company, then do you think there should be some Indian company that should secure our data? Because China, US, they're always on a lookout for data to use our data for influencing various faculties.
Okay, and there's one gentleman, white t-shirt right behind her. Sir, if you could allow me as well. Okay, chalo, you as well. Thank you from the part of ULIP. Sir, I would like to, firstly, warm greetings. I would like to introduce just as greatest and biggest fan of yours, sir. You can't imagine how much greatest I am. Secondly, sir, since you dealt with IR since long time, and I think most of the questions were from IR, so mine would be a bit different. What would be that one piece of advice that our foreign minister, our beloved foreign minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, would like to give to the undergraduate Jaishankar? What is studying in Delhi University? Okay, since I had already talked about the white gentleman, let me also ask a question. That'll have to be the last question. Okay, that'll literally have to be the last question because we have to end it here.
Sir, firstly, I'm honored to be
louder.
And my question is somewhat similar. I just want to ask you that what would you say to aspiring UPSC aspirants, more specifically those who want to enter the foreign services? And what is it that motivated you to go in that direction? Because considering you actually did your undergraduation in chemistry, which was like a bit away from foreign services. And also, sir, would it be possible for you to sign a book of yours?
First of all, this question about size of the foreign service. If we were smaller than Singapore and are doing the job we are doing, then I think we deserve a bigger salary than we're getting. So, but the truth is we are not smaller than Singapore. We are actually not smaller than many countries. I'll tell you that actually. what happens with many countries is they have a much broader category of people who they describe as diplomats. In our case, we classify them in different groups.
A grade, B.
Yeah, A grade, B grade, and also we have in our embassies, even in our foreign ministry, people from other services, say economic people or specialist services. So the truth is, our numbers are much higher than what is normally discussed around. But having said that, is there a case for growing the foreign service? Absolutely. Should we be increasing? We've increased in the last 10 years. I think we've opened about 20 to 25 new embassies. I think we'll be increasing our consulates a lot. And certainly, I think you will see the foreign ministry expand in terms of number of people. On the data security issue, yes, again, it goes back to that when I said reimagine security. So, your security, every time you tap a keyboard, every time you search for something, you have compromised a little bit of your security. Someone out there knows something about you. I can tell you, if you use that phone of yours for 3 months, there are people at that end of the phone who know more about you than you do yourself. Because they remember, they can see everything that you have tried to look at. So this is the new one. And we have to have the habits and also the capacities for that. So that is why today, I'll give you an example. When mobile phones came, for our 2G was primarily European. Our 3G and 4G was very heavily Chinese. So everything we were doing till 5G came was essentially the network, the service providers, the technology was foreign to India. It's only with the 5G stack, at the Prime Minister's insistence, we actually got a set of Indian companies to actually create an Indian 5G stack. Now, telecom is a very basic security sort of requirement. Now, there are different, we see this, if you look at investment, if you look at, one issue we are looking at is chips today. But what happens? You import chips, it's a global trade, people go for where it's the lowest cost. So what do? You have to, until you build your own chip industry. See that earlier question you asked, why are you importing from China? I would not like to import. But my answer to that is not, I won't import. My answer is, I will make. If you don't make, how do you, get rid of that dependence? So we have launched a semiconductor mission today. Our semiconductor capacities were last looked before most of you were even born. If you looked at SCL Chandigarh, we are dealing with sort of 1970s technology at best. After that, nothing significant has happened for almost 50 years in this country on semiconductors. Our electronic imports are second only to our oil imports. Now, we say on the one hand, we are the 5th largest economy in the world. Don't you people think that given how, in your own lives, look how important it is for you, how much your reliance is today on anything electronic. Should we not be doing that? So I think these are the issues today. And in many cases, I can tell you, look, as a minister, Prime Minister Modi himself has led from the front. The idea we had, it's only in his government that we even had a cyber security coordinator in the National Security Council. So it is a very real problem. What you flagged is very important. But you do not solve a problem with a slogan. You solve a problem by building capacities, by doing the hard work, by creating an alternative which is secure. And that is really today what we are seeking. On the last two questions, the advice question, look, the undergraduate Jaishankar was very confused, to be very honest. I did my, it wasn't entirely my fault also, okay? I finished school very early. Not because I was smart, but because I had a brother, an elder brother, and my mother did things which many mothers do, saying, one kid is going to school, दूसरों को भी लगा दो साथ. So because I finished school very early, I struggled to get university admission because I was underage. Okay. By the time this great university decided, okay, they will admit a person like me, every other course was full. So I actually opted for a course because admission will get to later. I mean, otherwise, what is the option? You sit at home. So I actually did my bachelor's as BSc General, and then I joined in a relatively confused state. I joined IIT for my master's in chemistry. But I didn't do badly, but my heart was not in it. So the undergraduate Jaishankar, by the time he reached postgraduate, decided maybe I should do what my heart, what I really want to do. And let me tell you, many of you will have that dilemma, and it's a very tough thing to do. To go to your family or to your friends or to your teachers and say, I really am not good at this, or I really don't think I want to do this, I want to do something else. And if that something else is very different from what they expect, you have some issues out there. So in my case, it meant I had to cross a road and move from IIT to JNU. Okay, but it was a very tough road to cross. And I even today thank my mom. Again, it's natural when you have a difficult problem, you first take it to your mother. So my mother sort of managed it out there. But on the UPSC, because what happened with UPSC? One, of course, I came from a background where my brother had taken the exam a year before me, and my father and other relatives were in the government. It wasn't always in my mind, but somewhere, the thought was there. And I can only say this, look, before any big exam or as you're preparing for anything, not just UPSC, anything else. I mean, one part of it is really to give it your best and to think it through. The UPSC syllabus, the structure we did was very different from what you people have now. But choosing your papers, knowing, and those days we didn't have any data, phone tha nahi, Google nahi tha. So you had only, you talk to people, somebody said, acha, British history mein marking acha hota hai. Frankly, this is how decisions are made. But the bottom line is, okay, you said, I take it seriously, I will work very hard, and most important, I will try to stay calm before I come to the big moment of taking the exam or whatever it is. And I would still say that, even today, look, you have big tests, you have big forums. There are times when you are doing something and entire world is watching you. Or it's not a test, and it's important to prepare. Every time I go somewhere, I come out of 2 weeks of almost continuous travel. But everybody I meet, every foreign minister I meet, every visit, every time I accompany Prime Minister for a meeting, what do? You prepare well, you try to anticipate what can happen. But having done all of that, at that moment of actual, testing, you can say, you have to, be in control of yourself. You have to be calm. You have to I would say, not let it get to you. And I think it's a lifetime habit which you need to start developing early. So if you are sitting for the UPSC, my best wishes. I hope one day I see you in the foreign ministry.
With that, we'll have to bring this to a close. I know there's somebody here with a portrait of yours as well, who is trying to give it to you. Maybe you can pass it on to his staff here, who will take care of it. Over to you.
I think I would do grave injustice if I tried to put into words how enriching this conversation was. But to show how much this meant to us, I would like to acknowledge the efforts of our support system, Principal Professor Simrat Kaur, our volunteer team, and the faculty of SRCC for managing everything since afternoon to make this event possible. So let's give a huge round of applause to the SRCC. As much as I do not want to close the session, to show how loved and appreciated Dr. Jaishankar is in the Delhi University, let's give him a final applause to the man and the legend, Dr. S. Jaishankar. Thank you everyone for being here.
Book sign. Book sign. Thank you.
পছন্দের ভাড়া অফার করুন বা আপনার পছন্দ মতো ড্রাইভারের অফারটি বেছে নিন। এখন অ্যাপের নয়, আপনার উপরেই সবকিছু।
बिग बास्केट 10 मिनट का नया नाम।